Welcome to the Grow and Connect podcast, Stephanie.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, can we start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, about your journey, and how you came to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's a little bit of a long one, so I'll try to keep it short. But essentially, my life's journey is what brought me here. In 2011, I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was experiencing severe post and prepartum depression. And I was on the verge of, I was making plans to not be here anymore. And so I went to the bottom of my list of everybody that could take care of my kids. And I went, such a bad mom, but there is nobody else in the world who's going to take care of them the way that I want them taken care of. And then I went, that doesn't even make sense in my head logically. And so I went and I got treatment for depression and my mental health. And right along that same time, I was moving into leadership in a corporate space. And I recognized very, very quickly that there wasn't a lot of emotional intelligence support from leadership for things like depression and anxiety. And I very quickly, through my time in leadership, became kind of the go-to person when people needed a disciplinary action or their manager wanted to talk to them, but they were worried about triggering something or what that looked like. So they would literally have me go into the room and talk with people who were experiencing mental health struggles. And I recognized very quickly that the majority of my team was experiencing mental health struggles. And I went, something's not right here. And when I left the corporate space and wrote my first book, the statistics were about 1 to 4, 1 to 5 people in the United States were experiencing symptoms of depression. And then we had COVID hit. And when COVID hit, those skyrocketed. And the most recent Gallup poll shows 1 in 3 Americans have been diagnosed with depression. And we're still at around 11 years from start to now. So my journey started in the mental health and leadership space because those two things I felt needed to be connected. They needed to be intertwined. We needed to understand as leaders what was driving these insane numbers around mental health and how could we help people to be happy when the majority of their time was spent at work. And so I started diving in and working through that. And then as I worked through that with corporate leadership, I recognized that the majority of people who were coming to me were actually business owners and entrepreneurs who were also experiencing some struggles with imposter syndrome and depression and anxiety and all of the things that we go through. And that's kind of where I landed here and now. So I work with both groups. I work with corporate leaders who, are ready to start kind of a revolution of self-care within their organizations. And then I work with rebel dreamers who have decided I'm not going to go and do things the way that everybody else wants me to. I'm going to be my own person and I'm going to be authentic and I'm going to take the rest that I need when I need it and still be able to change the world.
So, do you find that between the corporate leaders and the entrepreneurs, the underlying cause of those symptoms is different between the two? Or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't. There's a couple of different reasons why, and I think we have this mentality both in the corporate space and in business ownership that we have to sacrifice. Like, we've got to sacrifice to make the business run. And that is a good feeling. And we talk about service leadership all the time, right? The idea that like you'll show up and you'll be there for your team. And I fully 100% support that. But I think that the best way that we lead by example, whether it's in our own business or in corporate, is by doing things that we would want our team to do. And so what I find a lot is that people in corporate spaces, they're sacrificing, they're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And then they get overwhelmed and they get burned out. And then they go, I don't know why I'm doing this. Why I can't do this. I can't keep doing it. It's not sustainable. And I see the same exact thing in business ownership. And a lot of the business owners that I work with came from corporate, right? So they came out of corporate and then they moved into their own business and forgot that they have the freedom to dictate their own schedules and map out their own projects. And a lot of times they take the weight of the clients and the world and their businesses and their families and everything else on their shoulders. And it's not sustainable to do that without also making sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you're getting adequate support all around. And I think both corporate leaders and business owners do the same thing.
And so what is adequate support? What does that look like?
Yeah. So think about it in the terms of a pie, right? So as a person, as an individual, we have an entire human life, and that entire human life consists of a slice of work and a slice of health and a slice of family and friends. And we have these major life areas that a lot of times we try to tackle all by ourselves. And the reality of it is that even if you are a superhero and you can tackle it all by yourself, there's still the self, right? And you still have to have support for you. And so a lot of times what I see is especially solo business owners are completely understaffed. And what I mean by that is that they don't have anybody to talk to about their business. They don't have anybody to talk to about sales and marketing. They don't have anybody to talk to about finances. And when they do find people, it feels like a struggle to help those people understand their business and them and what that looks like. And so a lot of times they'll just be like, it's just not even worth it. But in order for us to be successful, whether you are, in the corporate space and you are a CEO who has a full staff of people to help support you, or whether you are entry level, just fresh out of college and walking into a corporate environment, you also need support in those areas, right? And it can't just be at work. You have to have support in your family life and in your home life. Even if you don't have a family, who takes care of the plants when you go on vacation, right? Who's there if you are struggling with surfing through social media and seeing all of the things that come up, right? So I think that it's really important for us to have different levels and different types of support. And the only way that we can do that is by really getting to know ourselves.
Okay, so what does being a change maker mean to you, and why is that central to your mission?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody is feeling some tension right now. I think throughout the entire world, we know things need to change. A lot of us feel like things haven't been working. And I think that it's pretty evident at this point that our typical run-of-the-mill systems that we have in place just they're not working for everybody. And I think part of the problem is that we have tried for so long to make things work for everyone without keeping in mind the individual, right? So for instance, in the corporate space, we have policies of attendance policies, for instance, right? Like you got to be there on time within 3 minutes of your start time. And that helps make sure that the business keeps running, except for the fact that if somebody's late 4 times in a quarter and the consequence is termination, right? So then we have to find somebody new without recognizing that things like ADHD and depression make it hard to get out of bed, right? And if we're not providing adequate support for things like ADHD and depression, that's what's going to happen, right? And so if 1/3 of Americans have been diagnosed with depression, and you have an American-run business who decides that, you have that policy where if you miss a day or whatnot, that you get written up, and then it just continues to escalate until you terminate, you're losing good people because they're sacrificing their own mental health to be there at work with you, doing their job until they can't do it anymore. And then you're losing years of experience and years of talent. And so I think from a change perspective, we have to stop looking at things in a way of, and I'm gonna pause here. I don't want to say we have to stop. We have to reframe. We have to reframe the way that we look at profit. The most successful businesses, the ones that are global giants, are the ones who are taking care of their people. or at least started that way, I should say. They
Do
started
you
that way.
do you think the depression that individuals experience, do you think the corporate environment has a major role to play in?
Yeah, I do. And I think part of it is the focus on profits, right? And I fully support, we go into business, whether you're a business owner or a corporate organization, the goal is profit, right? But we have this substantial focus on profits to the point where we do mass layoffs and we lose just entire departments of people, and then we put that work on someone else. And we forget about the fact that we ask them for 40 or 50 or 60 hours of their week, and they have entire families and social lives and things like that to take care of. And a lot of companies rely on things like EAP to make sure that their people are taken care of. But
What
the EAP is an employee assistance program. So essentially, it's a hotline that you can call. Your company pays for it. It's usually confidential. And you can call and you can get support for things like health and wellness and mental health and, even financial or legal. So a lot of bigger companies rely on that as a support mechanism for their people, but their people aren't using it. We see a lot of times in EAP companies, the rate of use is 30% or below. And so if they're not using it and you have these PTO benefits that you have to require people to take because they're not taking, that speaks to an issue in the cultural standpoint of your business and not necessarily even to the policies. You can put as many policies in place for making sure people take care of themselves, but at the core of it, if you still expect people to sacrifice their PTO, sacrifice their time off, to answer questions, to answer the phone for you, to be there, if you still expect people to respond, to you at all times of the day, or as a leader, you're not taking advantage of the PTO and you're not doing those things, you can't expect the culture to change.
Okay, well, so you have to lead by example. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think that makes sense, but not too much, right? You don't want to be that guy that's working 60 to 80 hours a week because your employees or, those who report into you or your employees, if you're a business or owner, you think that they will feel, do you think they will feel pressured to do the same? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when I was in direct sales, I had a team of people, and one of my mentors said to me one time, the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. And I fully believe that. And I believe that if you're working 80 hours a week and you're sacrificing your family vacations and you're missing dance recitals and you're not eating properly and you're sustaining off of caffeine and courage, your team sees that. And regardless of whether or not you implicitly say you need to work 80 hours a week and conduct yourself like I do, they look at you as a pillar of success. So if they want to be like you, if they want to move up in their company, if they want to move into your space one day, when you decide to retire or move up or move out, they know that the only way to do that is to follow your example. And whether you're a frontline manager or a CEO, it's your responsibility to set that example.
So what kind of perspective or frame shift do you feel is needed to make the work environment a better place where everyone is happier and not getting depressed because of all the
Yeah.
pressure and so forth?
I think the first thing that we have to do as individuals is take an observer perspective. And I say that because study upon study upon study show that a midday nap helps your brain work better. That shows caffeine doesn't always help your brain work better. It shows that taking a walk every day helps your brain work better, that productivity increases the less hours of work that we do. So companies that are doing 50, 60, 80 hours a week, how much productivity are you actually getting out of your team? Versus if you cut those hours back to 30 hours a week or 40 hours a week, how much more productivity would you get? So I think for me, it's an observer point of view, and I think it has to start with us. I think we have to look at what are we doing day after day, whether you're in the corporate environment, whether you're a solo business owner, whether you're a mom, whether or not you don't have any businesses. Maybe you're a student in college and listening to this, but the reality of it is that if you're burning your candle at both ends, eventually it's going to burn out and it's not sustainable. So looking at how our body feels when we wake up in the morning and we've had 3 hours of sleep, looking at how our body feels at the start of our day, at the middle of our day, at the end of our day, what changed today? Really just hyper focusing on being the observer without judgment. I don't care that you should have drank water today and you haven't. But the question is how do you feel? Knowing that you haven't drank water, how does your body feel? And that's the observer that I need everybody to take. And I say this as I need, because this is my personal mission, right? But if we can take that, we start to learn what our body needs. And then we recognize that our body is vastly different from what everybody else wants us to do. And then we have to learn to give the respect to other people to do the same thing. And that's where I think the biggest perspective shift can happen.
So what type of people from the corporate world or entrepreneurs come to you? What exactly are they experiencing that prompts them to reach out? And once they do, what does your framework or program, what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that is a little bit different is that I don't have a standard framework or program, because I like to take the observer and go, what do you need? I have people who reach out to me because they're experiencing imposter syndrome, or maybe they've had a talking to by someone at work and they're like, I don't understand why this is an issue. I've had people come to me when they've had problems on their teams where they can't get their team members to align, or they've got a lot of pushback coming in. And from a business owner perspective, I get a lot of people who either have imposter syndrome or they are struggling to prioritize because they've got too much stuff going on and they're trying to do it all by themselves. So those are probably the two hot buttons that I get from the solopreneur world. But the aspects of those things within the contents of imposter syndrome and prioritization and management of other people, it all comes back to the same thing of what do you need to feel supported, to feel confident, to feel like you can prioritize. And sometimes that's just a sounding board, right? So I have clients who book a call with me every 6 weeks or so and say, this is what's going on. This is what I need. What do you think? And sometimes that's great, run with it. And that's the gist of the call, and they feel validated and rewarded afterwards. And then I have other people who join our Rebel Dream Lab, which is a container program for business owners and leaders who need additional support, whether that's co-working, whether that is setting time aside to be creative, or whether that is that self-care. We need to have a conversation every once in a while around how you're taking care of yourself. So there's a lot of different options, and I try to meet people where they are and not necessarily fit them into specific programs that I might have or might not have.
Okay, so you founded a community and a learning hub centered around mental health. So
Yeah.
what is that community about, and what kind of, change are you hoping to achieve through it?
Yeah, so the community has evolved. Originally, what I wanted was a mental health hub for corporate organizations to be able to bring their people. And I realized that it just wasn't going to work in the way that I had originally thought that it would. And what I also realized was that the majority of the people who were joining were solopreneurs, not corporate organizations with teams. So it has evolved into this space where, again, the people who don't want to continue to do things the same way, they know that change needs to happen, or maybe not just for themselves, but they're trying to create change for the world. They're trying to help people. We have a member who is working with veterans to support veterans and their mental health. We have another member who is working to support business owners with social media. We have another member who is redesigning an app for tracking and nutrition, which is completely different than anything else that I've seen on the market. So we have a lot of different aspects and flow and support that we offer each other as a community. But the whole idea is to give them the space to go against the grain, to listen to their intuition, to trust their own thought processes and brain power, and to give them a place to dream big and experiment with different and new ideas that they haven't had a chance to run with before.
Can you give us an example a little bit? Because I'm kind of having trouble visualizing what that space sort of looks like and what
Yeah.
sort of conversations take place
Mhm.
within it.
Yeah, that's a really good. When we look at the conversations that are happening, they're happening on different levels, right? So we have a framework in the community of co-working. So 1 to 3 times a week, depending on the week, we have active co-working sessions where people literally just come and sit and we work together, and it gives them added accountability. So especially for neurodivergent folks, that's super helpful. And then we have office hours. So we have social media office hours that is run by Laura Guiar. And she runs those office hours in a way where people can bring any social media questions whatsoever. And she tries to help steer you in the right direction. She hosts content planning parties where we sit down and we look at social media and we decide what are we going to put up on social media over the next month. We have Money Date Mondays to help people in business who focus on finance, and we bring them in. And if there is a program that someone has been thinking about starting or isn't really sure whether or not it's going to take off, we open that space for members to run beta programs. So they'll throw up an invitation or an event on the calendar, and some of our members will join and give some feedback on what they thought of it, ideas and tweaks that they can change. And then we have, like, I host office hours, or we have a tech support call for what tools can I use.
Okay. So it sounds like a business support sort of network more than
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so where does the mental health part play into that or come into that? Is there also some sort of office hours that focus on, the balance in life that you need to sustain that as well?
Yeah, so those are my office hours. So when I host office hours, a lot of times we're talking about mental health, prioritization from a space of overwhelm, things like that. That's what I specialize in. My certifications are in trauma informed coaching and cognitive behavioral coaching. So I try to focus on those areas when I do my office hours. Occasionally we go into the weeds a little bit from a business perspective, but my goal is to make sure that my clients are taking care of themselves, and that's what it comes down to.
Okay. Well, it's a very, very unique. I've spoken to individuals that offer, some of the business components in their community, in their program, but what you do is you offer the mental health and the sort of the keeping balance component and work with individuals to do that as well. So um that's great. For someone that feels stuck and out of alignment, where do you recommend that they begin the process in to begin, shifting their perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think first again is really taking inventory of ourselves and understanding what's going on with us. Where is it that we feel stuck? Why is it that we feel stuck? And sometimes we don't have the answers. I have no idea why I feel stuck. But then for me, it's kind of about digging deep and understanding, like, when have I had a full night's sleep? I think a lot of times we think that the problems that we're facing are really, really complex. And I'm not discounting that they are, right? We're human beings. Humans are complex. That's just what happens. But I think in a lot of respects, we lose sight of how important our physical well-being is to the way that our brain functions and the way that we can get out of those stuck situations. And I really do believe that a lot of times we know the way out. We've just stopped listening to ourselves. We are heavily conditioned by society, by school, by work, by the people that we interact with and our families. And that conditioning makes us doubt ourselves. It makes us not 100% sure if we're headed in the right direction with a thought that we have. And so when people feel stuck, the first thing I ask is, what do you feel like you should do? And a lot of times people immediately have an answer, but then they have a laundry list of why they can't move forward with that. And a lot of times the reason that that laundry list is so long is because things are complex, but also they are thinking of things from a very narrow-minded perspective. And that's why my business is called perspective shifting, because when we take all of that all the blinders off and we let people see the bigger picture, a lot of times that interaction is a lot easier. But we have this lens of experience that we go through life, and our brain catalogs all the things that happen in our life so that it can keep us safe. And based on that record, it gives us feedback that says you can do this or you can't do this. And I think a lot of times we listen to that we can't do things versus we can, and we just have to figure out how. So a lot of times I help people take that first observer view, figure out what their intuition is saying, and then remove any barriers to being able to listen to that intuition.
Thank you for sharing your journey and some of the wisdom and what you do in your community. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Stephanie. It was
Yeah,
a
thank
pleasure
you for
hosting
having
you.
me. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you and the invitation as well.
And so before we finish, if there's someone that would like to get in touch with you, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you need to send just a quick message, you can do that on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can find me at stephaniekunkel.com. That's my website. And you can book a consultation call on there for free. Or if you are really feeling stuck and you have no idea what area of life you're stuck in, you can check out my free Thrive Guide, which is a resource that's listed on my website.
Great. And I'll be sure to put that in the video when we post it. So again, thank you, Stephanie, for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.